Hello, guys, and what? Oh, sorry, my mic's. Laura, can you introduce? My mic's kind of like just completely went.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the very zany Talking Stick Show. I'm Laura Massey, and I'm with Dale Tobin and Matty Waller from Two Feathers Medicine. And we're really honoured and excited to have once again David Ellis with us tonight.
Hey everyone.
Hello, guys. Sorry about that. My mic kind of like I started talking. I was like, "What the fuck? I can't hear myself anymore." Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you, Laura, for that, and welcome to this week's show. Really excited to welcome David Ellis back on to the show. How are we all doing? Laura, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Dale. Yeah, great to be here. Really looking forward to hearing what David has to say about this psycho-spirituality.
Incredible. And have you got some new things in the pipeline for the training or mentorship? Did you want to just talk about before we start?
Oh,
the mentoring?
For myself?
Yes.
Yeah, for what I'm doing. Just guys, look out for, I'm doing transformational prayer, shamanic process teaching coming out soon, maybe as a webinar or something similar. So look out for that. And as always, Matty and I and Dale can be found on twofeathersmedicine.com, and we have shamanic training courses on there, and we'll be coming up with a lot of different shorter courses too in the near future. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks, Dale.
Incredible, Laura. I'm really looking forward to that. You've been telling me a lot about it, and it's really, really interesting. So, Matty, brother, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm very good, mate. I'm very busy. I've had a great week, actually. Lots going on. It's been an interesting week all round.
Incredible. It's great to see you, brother. And we welcome the great, the one and only David Ellis. Hello, David.
Hey Dale, how are you been?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm really hot because I'm in the Caribbean now. Really, really hot. It's plus 35. So
you're cooking?
Oh yeah, cooking
Yes.
is correct. More like slowly basting in my own juices. Yes, pretty much. Images of the turkey rolling around on the road. Never mind.
And we were talking last week. So David was on the show before. We were talking about spiritual communities and going into the mechanics of that. And me, Laura, and Matty were talking about how wonderful the show was. We went over the usual time, and it was just such a fun show. It was incredible. So we were like, David has to come back on, and here we are. So let's begin. We're here to talk about psychology and spirituality. Where do you want to start then, David? Where can we start?
A lot of people who are doing therapy and a lot of counseling, like traditional medicine, psychology and the theories of psychology actually came from, guess what, metaphysicians. They came from esoterically minded people. Modern medicine came from Hippocrates. Guess what Hippocrates was? He was a metaphysician himself. So when you're talking about people who have contributed to our existence as we know it, we're talking about people in terms of the Hippocrates. We're talking about people like Freud and Jung, as an example. Now, there's no mistaking that Carl Jung was very esoterically minded, and a lot of people do not know that. So it's very important that when we start any discussion about spirituality, we start from the psychology aspect, and I'll tell you why that is. Because when we say the psyche, we're not actually referring to the brain, the material brain. We're referring to the personality that has developed to interface with reality, with the world. So the personality that I call David, the personality that Laura calls Laura, the personality that Dale calls Dale, and Maddie calls Maddie, is just an interface. And a lot of people mistake this personality for all that there is. Okay, and so when we're talking about the psyche and psychology, we're talking about things that are deeper than that. Okay, what makes you you. So I suppose I could give you an overview of how this works. So the part of your mind that you're using to probably listen to this broadcast or listen to what I'm saying is called your conscious mind. And Freud called it the ego. Okay. And it's not a misnomer. It is really the ego because it thinks that that's all that there is. Beneath that layer is your subconscious mind, or your unconscious mind, so to speak, right? And let me tell you the three things that are very important with this part of your mind, because there are only three layers. The three things that are inside, that are connected inside there, are your body's unconscious processes, such as your heartbeat, your blood circulation, how the endocrine system works, your emotions, and your memories, all of them. You could see how that might be a bad combination to have in the same place. Okay? It's a very interesting design, because if I say something to you that you don't like, it's going to mess with your body's unconscious processes, because it's like a little washing machine of, for one, I can't swear on this show in the first 15 minutes. It's like a washing machine of crap. Okay? I'm hoping that this show will give people a lot of insight into how their minds work, because a lot of people try to figure stuff out, but they don't have the theory, and they go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So I'm going to just lay it all out there for you guys. And the last part of the mind, which is your superego or your superconscious mind, so to speak, that's what Freud called your superego, and Jung called your superconscious mind, is that part of the mind is equivalent to everybody. It is the internet of mentality. Okay? It's like surfing the World Wide Web. That part of mind is the same for me as it is for you. This is what we call mankind, so to speak. And inside that part of the mind, there's little pieces of language that you can, like archetypes as an example, like the trope of motherhood as an example. It's embedded into who you are. So, as an example, a kitten is born, and it's playing with the yarn, and it's learning to kill things. Okay, nobody taught it that. You could take it from its mother, and it'll still do that thing. Okay, it'll still, like, there's no turning a kitten into, I don't know, teddy bear as an example. Some things are hardwired onto it, and so that's where our hardwiring comes from. And so when we're talking about this psychology of spirituality, this dynamic that interacts between the three layers of mind is important, and I'll show you why. You were born into this world, as an example. You came with hardwiring. You also came with a bunch of memories embedded onto you, which even Freud and Jung already have established. So your hardwiring when you came in could have been genetic. It could have been from the past life. They didn't want to say that because that would have been very unpopular and that would have discredited them. Okay? And so you have these hardwired ideas about life, and then you go through life. So let me show you how things go off the track, where the train jumps off the track. Let's take little Susie, for instance. Little Susie is born into the world. Okay? Little Susie is hardwired to a certain extent, if there's nothing really quite wrong with little Susie, to, as an example, be a mother, theoretically, right? Because she's a human mammal organism. And so when she's in her formative years, little Susie sees her father as an abusive, loud, abrasive man, as an example. Okay, so far, you're with me. So little Susie's idea of fatherhood and manhood is that of abrasive, abusive person. You feel me? Little Susie crosses over 13 years old. She steps out into the world like the fool in the tarot deck. I'm going to layer this with spirituality. Like the fool, she steps out into the world and she wanders into the world and she says, I'm going to make my way through the world. But little Susie has a program inside of her. The program is to reproduce. That is the pure essence of that program. That's the essence of the program. but her experience, which is the layer in the subconscious, that washing machine of shit. Sorry, did I just demonetize you there? Right, that washing machine of
You
crap.
deplatformed.
We've always got Rumble.
Okay, so that little area, that little washing machine of crap, where her body's unconscious processes and her memories and her emotions are, have been twisted by her experiences of her father and what manhood is. Does that make sense? And so
Yes.
little Susie steps out into the world, and little Susie, the outward personality that we're calling Susie, is going to seek the other, the person that she can reproduce with, except she sees some guy with, I don't know, with those traits that her father has. Here's the problem that happens. She sees the guy who has the traits of her father, and she recognizes it as manhood. Does that make sense? So the spiritual construct of wanting to reproduce and wanting to meet the other, right? That essence, that seed, pure essence, has been corrupted by passing through the subconscious and in the directive of the outer layer. The directive to the outer layer is to meet the other, reproduce. Okay? And so she's going to go and find the thing that she recognizes. Okay? I just want to be very specific with you guys, because little Susie, or what you call the outward personality, the Dale, the David, that is me, the Matty, the Laura, is the dumbest part of you. It only accounts to about 5% to 8% of your brain's capacity, only 5 to 8%, but it got you through life. That's how powerful the brain is, the mind is. That's how powerful your soul is. And so this is what happens with little Susie. Now, when little Susie sees this abusive, loud, abrasive man, her body's unconscious processes will react. She will mistake the recognition for massive attraction and will want to be with that person. Of course, the program is running her like a demon running her, okay? That program is running her, and it doesn't matter if you sit little Susie down and you intellectually and logically explain, hi, this person is bad for you. There are 10 rules of the mind, and one of the major rules of the mind is the greater the conscious effort, the less the subconscious response. You get what I'm saying? And so go ahead.
Is it this why there's always that kind of like the empath with the narcissist scenario with relationships?
Correct. You see, the empath, as I said, I've said on many broadcasts, the empath is a very useful creature. That might be, there are other people with different skills. There are precognitive people. There are people with the ability to sense other demons and the unseen world. But the empath has a skill set that is meant for usually other spiritual people. Do you understand why? Because here's the thing, the empath is the person that could see your blind spots. That is the most useful skill to a lot of people. Because if you marry an empath, there's nothing that you will miss. The empath could tell you if you have that kind of relationship. But an empath is going to go to a narcissist because that narcissist has a million blind spots. And it triggers inside the empath a desire to assist. But it triggers within the narcissist, oh, you are very compassionate. I will take advantage of you. So that happens. But if you are a spiritual person, finding an empath is like finding gold. It is. Because that empath is going to see every last blind spot that you have. And
is this so, as an empath, and a lot of couples out there will, and I've had sessions with people who are basically, they go into the relationship and they're going to save and heal that person. And is that kind of like that personality who wants to go in and heal them? Would you say that that's just the programs, isn't it, of them taking over them and wanting to go in and change their life? then a year down the line, they're like, oh fuck, how do I get out of this? Because they realise how fucking fucked up they are, and they're not going to be able to do anything.
It's still codependency at the end of the day.
Yes.
You know, even though that person wants to try to heal, they need someone to heal. That person needs someone to manipulate. Therefore, they become codependent on each other to feed those needs, and then convince each other they're in love.
Guys, you know that's a trap for both people, right? It's not just a trap for the narcissist, but it's a trap for the empath. Because narcissists tend to think that they're powerful. They're not. They're actually quite weak. They depend on the empath, right? They depend on the empath, and the empath depends on them. It's a really quite a vicious circle, because the empath's existence is validated by the narcissist to a certain extent, and it's a very vicious circle. And the narcissist's existence is validated by the empath. There's a codependency, as Matty said, which is that is developed. Right? Because if you are a woman and you're involved with a man and you have been taught growing up to be the good woman, to be that good supportive partner, you're going to do whatever you have to do to help this person get over whatever, right? But if you are a man and you're like, the man is dominant and sword, right? That empath is like gold to you. Like, yeah, take crap from me. And that's why it's hard to disentangle people that kind of way. So the concept of psychology and spirituality, they are inexplicably intertwined. You can't separate them, because you have to. Because the first rule is to know thyself, right? And so I want to be helpful to your audience by giving them tips on how to know themselves. I mentioned in the last time I was here that meditation, you got to see the programs. You got to see the programs that are running you. If you don't see the programs that are running you, oh my God, you are like a ship on an ocean, except it's the Atlantic Ocean and you're in the middle of it. Okay? In a storm.
Which is why most people miss the obvious, isn't it, David? And I mean, that's myself included. It's the obvious things that you have to come to terms with, those which are big things in your life that are so big that you can't see them because they're all around you.
Yes, so there's an old Japanese saying, the biggest and most effective trap is the one that's put in the way of the man that's trying to escape another trap. Mm-hmm. So for spiritual people, I had a cartoon where this guy says, I'm leaving all the ego behind, I'm jumping off the cliff. And then he falls flat on the face of a cliff of spiritual ego. There's the next cliff that you fall onto. So sometimes it's the obvious thing. I have there are a number of psychological programs that run people. Shakespeare had a lot of them in his plays and stuff. I'm sure you've heard of Methinks the Lady Doth Protest Too Much. You've heard of that, right? And that is a statement. I think, it's very interesting to me. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. You can describe spiritual people like, I am not into this. I am not into that. Like, I'm vegan, so I'm not into meat. But never mind. It's because I don't like meat. Not because I have some sort of spiritual whatever. And you know the type. Come on, we spoke about it last time. You know the type. They're like, I am not into those things. I am not into this. I'm not into that. And then you're like, oh, your life must be real dull, huh? Right? So, go ahead.
After the last show, the next few days after, I went into York, the centre, and it was funny because they had, those masks on that, that movement where they wore those white masks, what were they called? They used to make loads of videos and walk around with these white masks. Anyway, they had a white mask on, and they had these boards of these like TV screens, and they had all the animals being slaughtered, and there was about 5 of them, and they all had fully masked face, just showing animals getting killed, and with big signs saying this must stop. And I was just laughing, thinking of the show, and then I went in and I saw all that. They were literally stood with huge signs and replaying death on a video of an animal getting slaughtered. And I was like, wow.
So
Was that the Vendetta or Anonymous? It was one of those, wasn't it?
Anonymous, that was the one, yeah.
Anonymous.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
the guy-
anonymous, it was looked like it, but not fully the one.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
Yes. And I wonder where people come off with this. There was this group who went to Volkswagen Center, and they crazy glued their hands to the floor and to the cars. And so the authorities came and they saw that they were crazy glued to the floor. So you want to know what the authorities did? They just left them. Would you like to know why? Because guess what you have to do in a few hours if somebody leaves you alone? You might want to go to the bathroom at some point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so after about a day or so, the following things, it gets kind of messy after a couple of days,
Yeah.
right? Right, with your hand, it's crazy glued to the ground. And what happened was that one of the scientists who did that nonsense, he's a scientist, which means that he would have had to go to school to learn some stuff, right? But he clearly failed biology. He may have passed physics, but he failed biology. So after a while, his hand began to swell, and he almost lost his hand because your hand is crazy glued in one place; it's not moving anywhere. Who in their right mind does stupid stuff like this?
No, I know.
So
I saw a couple, David. There was one where the authorities actually cut the floor out, and so they left them like that with a piece of floor in their hand, and off they went. And then,
oh my God!
But then there were others that have been trying to deface masterpieces, things like that. Really destructive stuff.
Pouring soup on masterpieces. I don't see what that. But once again, psychology runs people when they become too fanatical. This is how to test whether you're a fanatic or not. Here's a simple test for everybody who's spiritual, because I do it, and it might lead you into madness, but hey, small sacrifices for the greatest spiritual uplifted. Argue with yourself. If you believe in something really strongly, argue with yourself the opposite point. Don't wait until somebody comes and does it for you. Trigger your own damn self.
Yeah.
I hate to use that word. Right. Anyway, trigger your own self. So if you believe in esoterics and so on, argue against it.
Yeah.
If you believe in I don't know, shamanism, argue against it. Keep yourself balanced, and I'll tell you why that's a good practice. Because one thing is certain in life, you're going to meet the counter opinion at some point in time.
Yeah.
You might you might want to reason and keep yourself in balance, but there are people who go completely on one side of the fence, and they cannot have a reasoned discussion and a reasoned argument, which brings us to the next issue, which is the conversational terrorism that is taking over the world. So when you talk about psychology and fanaticism and all that stuff that we're seeing nowadays, the psychology of fanaticism does not allow any other debate, any other viewpoint. Okay.
Can I just say, David, I've got the image here just to quickly show you. Can you see it? So I turned around, took a photo, and that's you can see him holding all the signs, and there was a video just constantly playing.
You want to know? You want to know what's funny about that, Dale? What's funny about that is you showing animals being slaughtered, right? There are some hard-hearted people that will be walking down the streets. Oh, I feel like a burger now. Oh my God! Just by seeing seeing what's on your chest playing out. Oh, I feel like a burger. Okay, so that doesn't accomplish anything. And what happens is when you try to make a point like that is that people resist, right? Because there's no balance. And people feel when you're trying to take them off whatever center they're on, and you're dragging them with you. That's an act of narcissism, what that man is doing right there.
Yeah, and it feels to the general public like an act of violence.
It does. Yeah. It does. The other aspects that I could say of psychospirituality that are very important and are on big display are in relationships man-woman relationships, familial relationships, and so on. That's where you get to see psychology at its best. So when I was practicing, the thing that I tried to avoid most, apart from children's counseling, is family counseling. Oh my God. Listen, you could put me in a prison to counsel the whole inmate population, and I will do so willingly. Don't give me a family. Because if you think you understand what violence is, or verbal violence, you have not seen, listen, a man or a woman in a relationship that has gone extremely toxic, you need to smudge your office. You need to wipe down the walls of lime. You need to wipe down the walls of lime. And if they're going at it in your office, the level of vitriol and violence in terms of the way people approach each other, especially in romantic relationships, is beyond anything that you would have seen normally. Okay, so you'd find that people are, when a relationship is becoming toxic, as an example, because a romantic relationship, and I will talk to the spirituality of this, really requires you to allow somebody to walk into your space. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? You need to open your heart. Well, a lot of people's hearts don't get opened at all. But you need to allow people to walk into your space, to connect with you at a level that you wouldn't have normally have connected with people. And so when that goes sour, it poisons your entire being.
Yeah.
Because you've opened up to vulnerability.
Correct. And so when the manifestations of that is, normally speaking, in a relationship or romantic relationship, you're supposed to grow together. Okay? And I'm going to say this to your audience. If you're in a relationship and you are not growing, but you feel yourself regressing, exit stage left, no matter how much it hurts. No matter how much it hurts, exit stage left. And I'll tell you why that is. Because the relationships are supposed to make you grow. You're supposed to literally be able to see God through that other individual. Okay? And a lot of people would do really well to go research some tantric techniques, because when there's an absence of connection, toxicity ensues. And it's the kind of toxicity that no one survives. Okay, I don't care how spiritual you are, a romantic relationship will knock you off your center.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a program that's running inside your system that says to seek the other. And when I say the other, I don't mean like the other half or whatever the nonsense is. It is to seek the other, the thing that helps you to grow. Okay? And a lot of people have, when that program is running, they try to seek the other and they open themselves to the other, so to speak, right? Aimé Césaire was a very famous poet, and he kept talking about the other. He was a metaphysician as well. And he said that the most important thing in life is to learn how to dance the other, because once you learn how to conduct yourself in those close relationships, then other relationships become easier as a result of this. But then, psychologically speaking, people tend to seek toxic relationships for the purposes of validating themselves. And that's never a good thing. It never is.
The empath, just like the empath does. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I give an example of something I've seen? So I've seen couples, there's one specific couple that comes to mind, but I've seen it in other people as well, where there's none of the empath at all. It's complete, almost like obsession. So, you know, when you first get to know someone, you're always talking on the phone, always, you know, that kind of energy that never goes away, but the relationship turns sour, and then that conversation turns sour. So they're constantly, all day long, texting hate, ringing up hate, throwing different accusations just all day long, doing that, and they'll do that for days and then stop, and then probably there'll be lots of sexual interaction and whatever else, and then back to hate, back to hate, back to hate over years and years and years.
Yeah, that's not going to end in enlightenment.
No.
No, it might end in a completely different place. You want to know
How
another?
people can stay like that though, David, for so long?
They can stay like that for so long because you have to also take into consideration where these people are coming from, their backgrounds, and so on.
Yeah.
And it becomes a comfort curve. I know that individual loves me because that individual is cursing me today. Okay? Now, I want to just take you into the mind of dysfunction. Please, everybody, join me on a journey into dysfunction. All right? Little Susie likes the man who is abrasive and evil and abusive, not because of only her experiences, but it's what she knows. She knows this. It's comfortable. You want to know what little Susie would be very, very afraid of and not cool with? That man that is very kind to her, that is willing to do anything for her. That is something that little Susie does not know. It is the unknown. That man that is kind to her, if she allows herself to relax, that man flips on her, she's destroyed. Right? But if she's in a hyper vigilant state all the time, she knows what it is. She knows what to expect. And so I wanted to say something because with regard to an empath, the worst kind of relationship an empath could get into, you think it's with a narcissist. No, that's not true. The worst kind of relationship an empath could get into is with another empath. That would be very, very bad. Can you see why that would be very, very bad? Because
so many relationships end, as in say two spiritual empaths come, well, whatever, I don't class empathy as very spiritual, but two spiritual people come together and for some reason they start competing, and it's like it's not a co-creation anymore. It's just who can do it better, who can be this, who can that. And you see it all the time. People who come to see me who are spiritual and they come to a ceremony, and I say to myself, don't say to anybody else again, another year and they won't be together. And it always happens. They always just go against each other and it turns really sour.
That's very interesting to me what you just said, right? Because a lot of counselors I've trained and who are friends of mine who trained with me, they do the same thing you do. How long will this last? Okay, it's not like we're at the races making bookings and stuff. No, bets and stuff. But it's you're thinking, how long will this last? And listen. A lot of relationships can be saved if people initiate some level of understanding and so on. You would be surprised to know, and I'm going to say this, that spiritual people tend to lack a lot of understanding in relationships, and I'll tell you why. Let's say that you are fairly psychic, as an example. It means that you could see through a lot of bullshit, right? So, I'm sorry. This is going to get really... Okay, guys, disclaimer for the next 5 minutes. Everything I say is going to be uncomfortable for the next 5 minutes. Okay?
Watch out, empaths.
If you are psychic, if you are you're a high empath on that spectrum, you probably shouldn't get involved with people who are less spiritual than yourself. And I'll tell you why that is. Because then you could see through their stuff. Okay? And you guys are going to say, well, David, that's not true. It could absolutely work. No, it can't. I'm telling you, it can't. It can't. It so can't. Okay? Because people are going to... You're going to have to deal with a lot of crap. Because if the person comes from a regular socialization, it doesn't matter whether you're in the UK, the US, Canada, or whatever else, that individual will be used to game playing. You know what game playing is. Whether it be end gaming, right? Well, if you don't like me, you could just go about your business. That's called end gaming. It's a technique. They'll be used to little toxic tropes that they use, gaming. And you are going to have zero tolerance for that nonsense. I know a lot of you spiritual people very well. You all are not going to be able to handle that tolerance because you could see through it. You could see through it, you understand it, and you're like, should I tell him something? Not. And then some of you are going to be, and then it's going to slip out one of these days. You're going to just tell them, this is what I see. You are lying about this. You are untruthful about that. You tell half-truths. You are toxic. You are endgaming, etc. And when you just lay out that person's entire portfolio of games in front of them, that's when the relationship will end. And you guys, the fact that you all are smiling, every one of you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
You all know
Absolutely.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
sometimes, look, and that's a very good point. When you're talking about the psychology of spirituality, how much tolerance do you have? The hardest thing, spirituality is a lonely life. You guys know this, right? You would like to find somebody who is uh, on your level, on your spectrum, who is believes and cherishes the same things you do. You're trying to better yourself and so on. Um, but you're trying to better yourself in a way that is not popular in today's world because you're trying to see, and people are not trying to see. People want to be more blind. Okay, so when you end up in a situation where you're interacting with people and you could see through the stuff that they're trying to bring to you, it becomes a little bit difficult for you to psychologically handle people and certain human behaviors, which is what we're going to get into next, I suspect. Go ahead, guys.
So David, sorry, Laura, do you want to go ahead?
No, that's okay. You go on.
Okay. So another element to that as well is for those people who really are on a spiritual journey, who are learning from their mistakes, moving forward, and have a practice. The thing is that you will change, and you will change a lot and continuously, and there are certain things that will remain, and you become a better person over the years. You can't not from doing not so much self-mastery and constantly checking yourself, like you were saying, arguing with oneself, checking oneself, constantly reevaluating. And when you see a lot of these relationships that last for life, it's not that they're negative in any way, shape or form, but these people generally stay the same. You know, they obviously they change in a certain element, but people remain the same. But with the spiritual journey, it's you never know. You can never just nail anything down, because you know we're open to change. You have to be by nature to be you know on the path of self-mastery. You have to be, and so that as well can end a lot of relationships, and people just become different people.
Well, we're embracing the infinite and they're not. And that is quite a big difference, isn't it?
Or just a slower pace.
Yes.
A slower pace
Yes.
of development and learning.
And the best relationships, really, it seems to me, are if you've got two self-mastered individuals, or at least are on the road to self-illumination, where the other one realises they're not selfish journeys, because I think somewhere it says your first relationship is with yourself, which makes total sense to me, because if I'm not self-mastered myself and on top of the programs and keeping an eye out for the programs and the conditioning that's in me and what's going on with my parasympathetic and so on, then I'm not being self-mastered if I'm not doing that. So I need to do that to be the best person I can be. And also from a multi-dimensional perspective, mine is I want to evolve my soul. So I would want to be with somebody who would want something similar. It doesn't have to be the same type of evolution, but something that adds to the greaterness that is you. The greater energy field, the greater multi-dimensionality of you that's taking it forward beyond this life and beyond your here and now.
I have something to say. Everything you just said, I understood everything you just said. Now, Laura, please go outside your house. I try to explain that to the next man who drives past your house.
Get them to
To the
watch
next
this.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, be gone, witch, be gone.
Try to explain that to the next man. The mailman is coming to your house tomorrow to deliver mail. Explain exactly what you just said to him. See how that goes. This is
Perhaps if he
exactly
was
what
foreign and doesn't speak much English, then it will be all right.
yeah, right. You see, and this is where things go off the rails, because I understood everything you just said. Mary understood everything you just said, and Dale understood everything you just said. But here's the thing: when it comes to people, they are not going to understand what you are saying. They might understand it cerebrally, but not in their DNA.
No, it can be a turn off. It's not, it's not something that floats everyone's boat or many people's boat, is it really? So it's quite a small friendship circle in some ways.
Well, it's
But
a
then
very
you have to-
very
Dale.
evolved. What you just said then, really evolved and very great. But for majority of the world, it's
Yeah,
just
well,
But that was
I don't
beautifully put,
actually-
Laura. Honestly, like that was incredible what you said, and it just
Yeah, but
shows
I
how
don't put that
evolved
on
you are.
I wouldn't put that on a dating site.
No.
Okay, so I have this vision of Laura at a bar. This guy walks up to her, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" And then she starts talking like that to the guy. I've been watching this guy fly out of the bar. So,
I
okay,
know.
so this is why I suspect when you're dealing with, let's say you're a spiritual person and you're on a spiritual path, I'm going to give you guys some advice, the audience some advice, because a lot of your audience are going to be spiritual practitioners. When you are a spiritual practitioner and you're dealing with people who are not spiritual, right? And you want to connect with that person, baby steps is what you are going to require. You need to, first thing, if you are a woman, I'm going to give the advice to the woman and the advice to the man, because the different advices don't really square up. If you are a woman, you need to get that man who is, inverted commas, normal man, out of the carnal nature of where he is, to understand the subtleties of touch, like the touch of trust. I just did a webinar on that this morning. The touch of trust, as an example. The touch of trust is when you touch someone with nothing else loaded in there but "I care about you." Nothing else loaded in there. And so you have to train people out of their stuff. If you are, and I don't say train as in control, I mean like just get them to see a different kind of reality. Because a lot of men who are lascivious, let's say you like a lot of sex and you like a lot of women, it's not the sex you're after, it is the euphoria. Okay? Because when you really think about it, sex can be quite draining. I have a joke to give you guys, by the way. Sex can be quite draining, and you have guys who won't mow the lawn, but will sleep with 10 women. Okay? It's the euphoria you're after. For the man and the woman, so the spiritual man trying to interact with a woman who's not spiritual, you might have to get that woman out of her head and into her heart. A lot of women nowadays are not living in their hearts. We are seeing a prevalence of transactional relationships, as an example. Transactional relationships is, I need a man with money, as an example, and I will look good, and that will be it. What we're seeing the death of is the death of real integral connection with people. Okay? I'm going to quote from Witch's hand fasting, right? Wherever you are, I am. Does that make sense to you guys? That sentiment is just lost on people now. It doesn't exist anymore And really and truly, we should try to bring it back, which is why I suggest everybody go do Tantra, but then it takes time. And a lot of people want the quick fix, which I suppose it can be distilled, but not that much. So when we're talking about relationships with people who are not on the spiritual path, baby steps is going to be required. Baby steps, right? Don't expect that person. You're going to have to put up with a lot of game playing and understand that it's not personal to you. It's just the way people have been conditioned. Do you know anybody out there who is not on the spiritual path, who's not doing a lot of introspection, who does not play games or wear masks or any of that stuff? They're not themselves, and they don't know themselves, and they have chosen not to know themselves, and you are going to have to be okay with that.
Yeah, and I find myself having to wear a mask, but it's a positive mask that reflects a part of me, but not the all of me. But it still has the core values of who I am and some of my pronunciation and cadence without overwhelming people that I'm, let's say, for instance, working with. But I can still give the essence of my kindness, my, all the other things that my self-mastery has led me to, the little nuggets that you get along the way that help you to be a good human being, but without going into the deeper concepts.
Yeah, because you can be
Yeah.
authentic without having to be overtly spiritual. I
And,
mean, that's
and that's
basic.
like,
We've got to live in this world.
Exactly.
You've got to go to the
And enjoy
tax
it,
office
and enjoy it.
and all the normal things. Yeah.
and it's
yes.
a
yes.
breath of fresh air. Like, I've been married for 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. Yeah, 9 years altogether.
Telling Gabrielle.
With Gabrielle, and it is like, it's finding that when you're like, because I'm very spiritual and my work's spiritual, I'm doing sessions, it's a breath of fresh air not to be spiritual and turn off and enjoy the stuff she enjoys. So having to not have my ego or not trying to change her in any way, but just accepting some of the things she does, and me, I have to do that, and I enjoy doing that without trying to change her or I've got do you want a Reiki healing, do you want psychic surgery?
Yeah.
I used to do that at the start of a relationship, but I've just completely stopped, and I've enjoyed spending time with her, doing stuff she wants to do. So there's like the flip side, isn't it? If you're with someone spiritual, sometimes it could just be too much. You'd be like all the
And
time,
that-
fucking spiritual,
Yes.
spiritual.
Yeah.
There's only enough room for. There's only so much room for a shaman. So shaman needs a space. You can't have two shamans sharing all
good
the
point.
same space.
Very good point you've just made, because honestly speaking, when you're talking about relationships, before the show, Matty, Dale, and Laura, we were talking about horror movies. Not very spiritual. We're talking about The Grudge. That was an excellent movie. I highly recommend it. Okay, we were talking about horror movies. A lot of spiritual people just can't be normal people anymore. But the value of spirituality is the flexibility,
Yes.
the ability to adapt. When people are solid and stuck in a position, you should be able to adapt, to go high frequency, low frequency. Look at the level of discussion we're having right now, right? I'm not going to go down to the beach bar because I'm in the Caribbean and try to have this level of discussion. Hell to the no. I'm not going to try that, because half the people inside there are going to be drinking rum punches, and trust me, you don't want a deep discussion with somebody who is halfway gone, okay? So
But it can still be fun.
it can
It can still be fun. It's all an experience, isn't it? It adds to our greater experiences.
well, here's
Okay,
another
yes.
human behavior for you. Here's another interesting human behavior. Did you know that there is a quality of humanity called entrainment, and it doesn't matter whether you're a radio frequency, a frequency from the radio. It doesn't matter whether you're the internet or whatever else. Frequency is frequency. Frequency will entrain itself to a higher frequency. Okay? Right? So for those of you who know what FM is, it's frequency modulation. Right? Frequency entrains itself to a higher frequency. So as an example, if you are around someone who is not spiritual, their frequency will try to entrain itself to yours. Okay? right? It becomes a little bit difficult if you are around a lot of people who are dragging your frequency down, however. Okay? Right? So, and a lot of people who are normal people experience spirituality as you experience it several times during their lives. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that. Can you tell me any event, anything that is more spiritual than when you bring a newborn to its mother? You see that, you feel that, you just have to be in the room. You could see it. Instant spirituality accomplished. Okay? When somebody is truly in love and they're meshed with somebody, that is spirituality that they experience. Doesn't matter if they have read all the grimoires or whatever else. They experience it. So holding people in that space and telling them what you can do as a spiritual person is, do you like that feeling? Would you like it to extend? There are mothers who are going to be watching this broadcast. Do you remember when they brought your child to you for the first time? Do you remember what that felt like? Where did that feeling go? You want to know where that feeling went? You let it go. Okay? So people go in and out of spirituality. And then there are a few people, like 0.0001% of the population, which are people who are going to be listening to this broadcast as an example with interest and who have a spiritual practice, who try to keep themselves in that frequency. Okay? Here's another phenomenon about human behavior psychology. For those of you who think it's coincidental that when you're on high frequency and everything is going well and your practice is doing well, that shit comes to find you in every which way and to drag you back down, it's not coincidence. It's actually people picking up on your frequency and wanting some of it. And that happens in the superconscious or the superego part of the mind. They have understood that that person is shining and they want some of whatever it is that you're carrying. But the way they do it is by putting what we call hooks, what we call spiritual hooks into you to try to drag themselves up, but they're actually dragging you back down. So their intent doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily, well, some of that intent is nefarious, but their intent is to climb up using you. Does that make sense? And that's a psychological phenomenon that you will find. So, like we're having this discussion, there's going to be somebody on the internet that's going to say, oh, these people are weirdos. Okay? Because the discussion that we're having is not something that will gel very well with them.
I'm guilty as charged. I'm sure I can be completely weird sometimes in public, and I'm sure it must come off. Even sometimes, just me being me sometimes is enough, and people are like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy, man? It's just different. There's a differentness to it.
Correct.
And you can pick up on a lot of those people. The quick story: there's a lady who came to the summer solstice event last year, and she messaged me, and I gave her a lady's ticket who was disabled, who couldn't come in the end. So I said to her, can you give her the money for the ticket, the lady who had the ticket before? And she said yes. And I asked her, and I asked her 3 times, and something didn't sit right with me about this person, when you just get that feeling. And so I didn't ask again. I saw her at the actual summer solstice event, and she was there just staring at me. And we were all doing, like, my friend Craig had the gong bath out and the didgeridoo and everything. Everyone was laid down. She was just stood up looking at me for 2 hours, just not shutting her eyes. And at the end, we started doing the drumming. And this is where the demon or whatever was driving her inside, she had to leave. You just saw her walk away. And she ended up, on the next day, she put a Facebook post saying, I had the best night in my entire life. It was incredible. And she put loads of pictures up of me and obviously everything what was going on, people around her. And she sent me a long essay to me and 2 other people saying, I was so disappointed about last night, I want a refund. And it was a huge thing about how everything was wrong. And she put that obviously about Facebook an hour later, and I posted a picture of a Facebook post that goes, it doesn't make sense what you're saying here and what you put on Facebook. And long story short, this lady had 6 kids. She left them. She ended up marrying a lady in Canada illegally. She went over to that lady, nicked over £20,000 worth of money from her, and she's on the run in Canada, and her children have been taken off her. So that was initially, you know, when you get that weird feeling about someone where it's like, fucking oof. And next time I'm thinking I have to trust my instincts a bit more on this.
Yeah.
Yes, for those of you who are having these kinds of events and so on, please be aware. Please be aware that it's not, we call them energy vampires, but they're like, it's something worse than a vampire, because a vampire just wants energy, right? A lot of these people want to dispel the energy that you're creating, the vibration that you're creating. And they exist in the spiritual community as well. Okay, they are poisonous people in the spiritual community as well, and it's because of psychological issues as well.
And David, wouldn't you agree? The interesting thing about the spiritual community is that many people that are on the journey, they're not outspoken, so to say. So when you get into spirituality on a platform such as this, I don't want to be offensive, but generally a lot of the crazies are some of the first. Yeah, a lot of the crazies are some of the first ones to come out. And in the spiritual, anybody who practices spirituality on a regular basis and is good at what they do will know that a vast majority of the spiritual community are bonkers. You know, completely bonkers, and they're using spirituality in order to feed that desire to do whatever it is that they do. But okay, for some reason, spirituality just attracts that type of character, doesn't it, David? You know?
Yeah, it does. I'm going to give you examples of what I'm talking about. I was a yoga teacher for the Yoga Alliance for many, many years when I was younger. Okay, I taught yoga teachers. Inside the contract, the little sign-up sheet that you have, I said, we are not doing the guruism thing here. We're not doing guru business here. We're not doing anything guru. So I am me. I'm always going to be David. I was born in the Caribbean. I traveled a whole bunch of places. I'm always going to be me. Okay? Don't want to be anything else. I'm not going to change my name to Guru Ram Ass, as an example. All right? I'm not going to change my name. I'm always going to be David. That's who I'm going to be. Can you believe that people who came to my yoga class, they donned the white robes, the orange saffron, and so on. They're wearing, I'm like, you come from Chicago. Okay. So a lot of spiritual people have identity crisis. These are teachers that I taught, right? And so people tend to wear this mask of spirituality. There are people who are crazy, like genuinely, psychologically disturbed, who are teaching people. And it should be easy to pick them out, but then some of them are very sly. Okay? The ones that are easy to pick out are obvious. I mean, like, if you're running down the road naked because you want to be in touch with nature, and it's the middle of, I don't know, London, that would be an example of a spiritual person who may have an issue, right? They might tell you, well, I'm a shaman and I know what I'm doing and I just want to experience nature. It's the middle of London. Okay, right? So that's easy. And then there are people who are just poisonous in and out, as an example. And these are a little bit hard to detect because remember that psychological distress and psychological dysfunction does not discriminate, right? It may be in the spiritual community as an example, right? So people who are let me find an example. The better than spiritual types. Oh my God, they irritate the snot out of me. Okay? The better than. I am better than you because I'm spiritual. I am more spiritual than you. And the way you did that posture is not the right way to do that posture. And I could do that posture better. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. I don't care. And that is the way you handle people. You like that, you don't care. Because honestly speaking, there are going to be people who, and then there's the intellectual types. They would have read the Gematria. They're going to read the Injil Gospel. They're going to read the Torah. They're going to read all of these Sefer Yetzirah. They're going to read all these books, right? And they're going to come at you, right, and say, "You don't know anything." And I'm like, spirituality is expressed, okay? It has nothing to do with your intellect or how much stuff you know. Okay. So if you can't be cool with people, like be cool. Be cool with people. Okay? If you can't be cool with people and you think you have your undies in a twist and you're all superior and stuff like that, you haven't gone anywhere else yet. You're just an ass. Sorry, but that's as far as it gets. You're just an ass. You are not superior. You are just, you haven't gotten anywhere, but in their minds they have.
Well, I suppose they've just created another program to go with all the others, haven't they?
They've created another program, and some of that has to do with their childhood and insecurities. Like just last year, I had a situation where I suspect the individual in question had a lot of childhood issues, right? And was just playing it out, but just poisoning everything in the environment. Okay? These are the kinds of lessons that you learn. Hard to detect because the individual seems sane, probably is not. There's a lot of trauma on board, and which brings us to the next topic, which is the concept of trauma. Childhood trauma is a real thing. It doesn't matter whether you're spiritual or not, because you see it hides. It hides in certain places and it manifests itself in different ways, right? So the manifestations of childhood trauma will creep up on you when you least expected it, which is why continuous monitoring through meditation and practice is absolutely integral, right? You could be in a situation where you could not be triggered for almost 30 years and be triggered by a simple thing. And I want you guys to understand that. Little Susie, as an example, I'm going to illustrate, sees her mother's jaw broken by her father. The father is coming towards her. She is frightened. She is experiencing trauma. Okay, this event experiences trauma. Okay, she might have wet herself when out of fear. Okay, little Susie could get past that situation. Her mother moves away. She grows up. She could go up to and this is a real case that has happened in my office. Just changed the name. This woman, she was 54 years old, and she started wetting the bed, as an example. Okay? Why? Because there was a hidden trauma there that got triggered by something that she saw. Okay?
Yeah.
And this is not the first story. There's another story with a young man who, well, he was attacked by a dog, and he left that trauma and didn't deal with it. And he grew up and he went into the police force. Guess where they assigned him? The canine unit.
Oh, God.
Forced evolution.
Do you see how the universe works? They assigned him to the canine unit. So he started wetting the bed. These are the kinds of things that actually happen, right? Because you don't see them coming. He was fine, and all of a sudden he started to wet his bed as an adult. These triggers are real. They are inside of you, and if you don't see those programs coming, they can be very inconvenient. And I can give you some of the stories. There was a woman, and she was in her 70s, and she found herself in church with an incredible, overpowering urge to curse the priest and hurt the priest. She was seeing like curse words on the wall and so on. She wanted to curse the priest. And she ended up in my office, and she was wondering why. Because she has trauma from way back in her history. And there's a trigger there that's causing her to do these things. guys, you listen. You gotta pay attention to your triggers, because if you don't, it
Now,
could get ugly.
David, I'd like to flip the frequency on that as well, because as practitioners, I know all of us are still working through our shit, and
Correct.
still working through the stuff from our childhood and that, and for a lot of people, these things can be a destructive thing, but the introspection that we have, that we're talking about, for us, it like you said, see how the universe works. Sometimes you can see that as, well, this is what needs to be looked at, this is what needs to be dealt with. And that's when this multidimensional awareness that we talk about, where you can heal past versions of yourself through guided meditation, through your own spiritual practice. This is where the universe is saying this needs to be worked through. This trauma needs to be released.
And
Yes, because go ahead.
It's funny you say that, because it's like when you have a group of, say, friends who are quite high energy, and like I do when I became friends with you, Laura, met Matty and became friends with Andrew, it's like your programs can't hide anymore, and it gets to and that's why I think it's important to evolve yourself and push yourself out there. If the universe is bringing you all these high frequency people around you, maybe it's asking you to take that next step. And for me, it was that. And like, I couldn't hide from my own shit. Like, some of the conversations I've had with Andrew, I'm like, they just come to the surface, and now I'm seeing them for what they are. And all of these defeating programs of lack, like from when I was younger, when I didn't have much money, and I've had to go in myself and start really fixing those like lack stuff. So it is a long journey. It takes time and effort and discipline, and it's not just a quick fix. You've got to keep chipping away at it and keep doing it and not get overwhelmed by it.
And I can say this as well, Dan. I know that you guys, this is personal, but I know us three, since we began this collaboration, I've had to do more deep self-work than I've ever done in my life. I've done plenty of ritual and ceremony and things that I enjoy, but it's been about, ever since this has begun, just to be able to have the capacity to do this and to function with Andrew and with all of you guys. I've had to just completely reevaluate my entire life and go really deep into my own actual programs, self-defeating habit patterns, past traumas, and get them healed, or at least begin the healing.
Yeah,
It's been transformative, hasn't it, guys?
Otherwise, you call me out on it.
We call each other out. We call each other out, and it's brutal.
Yeah,
and it's brutal.
It can be. Yeah, it can be.
Isn't that amazing though? Isn't it amazing the way things work? I can pretty much tell you that there have been times in my life where I've tried to hide from my own self, which is very difficult to do. When you're walking around with yourself. So, as an example, I decided to come off the spiritual path and become a mercenary corporate person. I decided to do that thing. Yeah, in Toronto, it didn't end well. It didn't last well. Would you like to know what happened? I took a holiday.
Absolutely.
And I took a holiday, went to Barbados, ran into, Andrew as well. And I'm like, what are these people doing? Right? It was what are these people doing, right? And it woke me up again, because you would like to forget, and I'm going to say this to you guys. A lot of people think that you can't switch off the spirituality thing, and I'm going to tell you, you can't. You can't switch it off, no matter how much you try. If you've started on this path and you figure that you can just simply run away from it and do something different, it's not that easy, because it doesn't matter. I'm like, I have spiritual gifts, I'm going to use them in the corporate sector, right? And just so that we're clear, for those of you who are mercenary at all, being spiritual makes you very much more suited to corporate life than you think. Okay, it makes you extremely effective in a very short space of time, especially when you could see shit coming, right? Which other people can't. So, but the thing is that you are going to remember at some point in time, you're going to hit that wall. You absolutely are. Okay, so hiding from yourself is not even an option, which is very inconvenient. Very inconvenient.
I think there's sometimes people can. I think if you are one of these people who, so let me give you a metaphor. If you've ever done physical training and trained your body to be in a good state of health, when you've cleaned your gut and you've done all of that stuff and you get your body in a great shape, whenever you're not in that shape, that's your benchmark. And you remember what that felt like, and you remember the energy, you remember the power and the confidence that you had, and that becomes your benchmark. So it's the same for spirituality. So if you shut it off, then it will just sit in the background as programs of shame, programs of guilt, programs of lack, or whatever. It will just work against you.
But it
Thank
can
you,
also
Maddie.
manifest as illness. Sorry, David. Can also
No, go ahead.
manifest as illness.
Exactly.
I've seen it in situations where people have completely tried to shut down their psychic abilities and all these abilities they have, spiritual abilities, and they've ended up, manifesting something that is in their body instead, an embodied state.
Yeah, I concur, and thank you for that, Maddie. I haven't been to the gym since I've been traveling. Now I have to do some push-ups after what you just said. Right?
Goes off camera, David.
Yeah. I might not wait until the end of this broadcast. I might just drop it to 20.
Yeah, if I'm not training, I don't feel right. I actually get depression if I don't train.
Yeah, don't drill it in. Don't drill it in. So, guys, do you have any more questions about the psychology of spirituality? Because there's lots of human behaviors which we can talk about honestly. The concept of the frequency thing, the concept of meeting the other. These things are very, very important psychological or spiritual concepts. But here's the one that is most important. And the one that is most important is something that is called, we have a saying for that in yoga, Ishwara, Pranadhana. It means that surrendering to the ultimate. So a lot of people do not resonate with the word surrender. A lot of people do not resonate with the word surrender. People are like, what? Surrender? Who, me? No, never, I shall never surrender. And I have to try to explain to people that there is strength in letting go. There's strength in the surrender. Okay? And they're like, it doesn't resonate with me. I don't want to surrender. And I'm like, the best way to teach somebody about surrender is to take them surfing. That is the best way to teach someone about surrender. So for those of you who have a problem with surrender, go learn to surf. You will learn
Gets
very
rid of
quickly.
entities as well.
There
It's
is
allowance, though, isn't it, David? It's an allowance. It's an acceptance. It is as it is. You don't have to control everything.
Surrender can be disempowering or empowering. It depends on your perspective and how you apply it.
Correct. But a lot of people won't surrender to their own selves, to their own higher mind. They won't do it.
No.
Because
The amount of resistance. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dave.
And it is something I've been doing lately was parasympathetic work, where I was like really relaxing, turning it off, being able to go into a really nice state. And I recommend for people doing this to reach that surrendering state. Like the other day I looked at nature, I looked at a tree when I was in such a nice relaxed state, and I was like, oh, I can hear everything now. I can hear this real natural beauty, and I was almost in tears when I heard it. And I was like, this is the state we need to obviously to go forward. Is like you say, David, with the meditation, it's exactly the same type of state with the brain waves. And I just looked around and I was just so comfortable with everything. It was like there was this just tone down of everything, and I could really see what the truth was. And a lot of people are just so stimulus everything. They have to be doing this, have to be doing that. We stop remembering how to dial ourselves down to actually realize what true kind of surrendering is. And that was my experience the other day. I was just like, fucking hell, this is beautiful. I was like just looking at a tree in a really nice state, and I was just like, this is surrendering. And I need to do it a lot more.
That's a bliss moment. That's a self-induced moment of bliss. And that is one of the beautiful gifts of someone on a spiritual journey, someone who's actually getting the fruits of their labor back. And I found myself this week doing exactly the same thing, Dale, being so overworked and such physical, and the work I'm around is not clean. There's a lot of, energetic mess around me, but just a simple cherry tree that's blossoming, and just take a moment that I've learnt from my meditations to just, and then just empty it out and see that takes a lot of mastery to do that. Most people are just running all the time, dum 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 dum, like just day and night, and many people just don't have the ability to just switch off, but it's the greatest gift you can give yourself, because there's always going to be something to think about.
And there's so many distraction programs out there, aren't there? Set up by the system.
Infinite.
So that you don't do that. So here's a question, David. We've looked at self-mastery. We've looked at looking at ourselves. What about from a practitioner, therapist, counsellor point of view? Somehow you have to access the subconscious in order to get to the bottom of the traumas. What sort of techniques are there for that? And
Well, it
how
depends on what
successful are they?
Well, the correct answer would be it depends. Theoretically, an individual who walks into your office, the reason they came into your office is not the real reason why they're there. So somebody could come into your office, I wet the bed. The reason why they're there is because at 4 years old, a dog attacked them. So what is required is a little bit of discovery on your part. You have to be that detective if you are a therapist. And what that looks like is, okay, you went in the bed. When did it start? What happened that day that you wet the bed? Okay? And then you start to trace it back through a timeline. Okay? Because something has triggered that person, and the trigger usually happens within a day or so. Okay? And then they end up in your office because nobody wants to wet the bed as an adult. Okay? Okay, some people might, but generally not. Right? So nobody wants to wet the bed as an adult. And so they end up in your office. So there's a number of techniques you could use. You could use timeline therapy, where you get to trace that person's life path in this incarnation. Okay? Once you trace it, then you use hypnotherapy to find and make them relive that situation. Okay? In a safe environment, because that's the beauty of hypnotherapy. You can make an individual relive a situation without experiencing or further compounding a trauma. Okay? You could use cognitive behavioral therapy, where you get them to see the rationale between what they're experiencing inside and what is happening. So as an example, I have a fear of spiders. No, I don't. I don't have a fear of spiders, but let's say somebody has a fear of spiders. Let's rationalize this. You're 200 and how many pounds? Spider is that point. You get them to see what we're talking about here. Having said that, I have a fear of grasshoppers, okay? I'm personally admitting it. For all the therapists out there, I'll be knocking on your door, okay? And I'm in an island where there are grasshoppers, okay? So if you notice, everything is shut. Anyway, never mind. I have a fear of grasshoppers, okay? But rationally speaking, it's dumb. Small grasshopper, but the mind doesn't understand that. So you have to take them through the processes and the logic of it. Then you get the little fake grasshopper, you bring it in, and you show them the perspectives of mind. Okay? You can implement rational emotive behavioral therapy as an example, which gives them the perspectives and works on the emotion to the grasshopper. So if you could as Matty used the phrase there, flip the frequency of the emotion that you're feeling towards that grasshopper, as in terror, as an example. Okay? If you are feeling the terror from seeing the grasshopper, and I'm going to give you, yeah, you're laughing, but let me tell you, it's a funny story I have to give you guys, right? If you're feeling the terror and you want to switch it, like you might try to explain to that individual, look at how cute that grasshopper is. That'll never work on me, just so that we're clear. You're going to have to do something else. Right, right, right. Look at how cute the grasshopper is. See, it's bringing you good luck and good news. Why don't you have a discussion with that grasshopper and stuff like that? You get the idea, you flip in the script. Okay, so I'm going to explain as an example. I'm going to use my personal example because I'm going to be vulnerable on your show of my experience with the grasshopper. In St. Lucia, when I was young, we have a different kind of grasshopper out here. It looks like a locust. And a lot of people think, well, what's the big deal? A grasshopper, locust, the same thing. No, it's not. Okay? A locust is like a grasshopper on steroids. It's like, it has muscles and stuff. It looks like something that shouldn't be. Okay? And they're not afraid of you. So I woke up one morning when I was very young, and there was a grasshopper over my bedroom door. Small problem. Over the door, just over the door where you need to pass to get out. Small problem. There's only one door out. So you have to go through the grasshopper, okay? So you're like, I'm a man. I can do it. Whew. Well, as I was passing through the locust, I got a really good look at it. It's like it has muscles and stuff. Like, why does an insect have muscles? Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, and I'm like, it moved, which triggered a negative reaction. That is the easiest way of saying that in me. And so 3 days later, when my father found me sleeping on the couch downstairs, as an example, because if the grasshopper's in there, you could have my room. It's fine. It's okay. You could have the whole room to yourself. So he inquired, right? And I was forced to, tell him what the situation was. And he went and killed the grasshopper. He says, look at that. That's a little grasshopper. I'm like, no, it has muscles. Right? So because I hadn't dealt with that, obviously, I may have some issues with grasshoppers, especially the ones out here that will actually land on you. They will land on you. Now, other people have issues with creepy crawlies like centipedes. Does anybody know what a centipede is, sir? Have you seen that thing?
Yeah.
Have you seen one of these things? You've seen one, but they're small in England, right? So where I come from, we have volcanic soil, so they're really, really, really big. And you don't want any of these centipedes to bite you. They bite, they're aggressive, and they're full-on predators, and they look wrong. They look like something God created to scare the crap out of people. Okay?
David, I've heard from some Buddhist monks that lived in Thailand that there was a centipede. Not the millipede, the centipede. They have the big, long, flat sections, this big, that has that kills when it bites, but it will actually predate you. So they're living out in the forests and the kutis and the huts, and these things will actually come predate you and kill you if they get you.
It's the appearance, It's like a scorpion. It looks wrong, and so that will play out in your mind when you see one. Because I've been bitten by a centipede several times. Right. By the way, I think Andrew has been bitten by a centipede. That was extremely hilarious. That's hilarious. Right. I've been bitten by a centipede several times, and these things are horrible, like creatures. The look, the 1,000 legs bit, the little creepy crawly wiggly thing. No, hell no. So your mind goes like no, and so some people, when they get this idea, and it's embedded in the mind, it creates a fear. For me, it's grasshoppers. For somebody else, it's centipedes, right? Somebody in the chat says a fear of heights. Well, you need to be able to trace that fear of heights, and I wish you were actually inside this chat, because then we could work on it so that people could actually see how this is done. So if you have a fear of heights, I suggest the following things. Oh, yeah, they do bite. The centipedes do bite, and believe me, it hurts like you cannot believe. It hurts like it's a whole different level of pain. Okay, so a fear, a fear of heights would be something. When you're dealing with somebody who has a fear of heights, you need to actually take that scenario with that individual and work the fear of heights inside the mind. So hypnotherapy is advised because the fear of heights is not only it's not irrational. It's not an irrational fear. It's a very rational fear. You're afraid of the Ferris wheel, or of a ski lift. Okay. So can I ask you a few questions if you are in the chat right now? Why are you afraid? Ask yourself the question, why are you afraid of the Ferris wheel? And there may be a delay. Ask yourself, why are you afraid? Because if you find the answer of why you're afraid, you feel yourself falling off. Okay. And so, have you been on a Ferris wheel before? Yeah, and that's your mind. That's your mind running a program that says that you're in danger of the Ferris wheel. Keeping in mind, there are two reasons why you would be afraid of the Ferris wheel. Because at the root of your fear of heights, or the fear of the Ferris wheel, is the fear of death. Are you afraid of dying? I love that attitude, by the way. Are you afraid of dying? You close your eyes on the Ferris wheel. What is the point of going on the Ferris wheel if you're going to close your eyes? Okay. So my question to you once again is, are you afraid of death? And how afraid are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid are you of dying? Okay, so I'm gonna just give you a few practice ideas that you could go through. If you are, a lot of the fear of heights are inscribed in a sort of fear of death, or fear of falling, or fear of death. And when somebody is in that scenario, we normally take that individual through the scenario inside their minds. Okay? Now, on occasion, you will find some reasons come up that may not have anything to do with what that person has experienced in this reality. So that person may, and that's where the past life stuff comes into. What you are describing there when you say, I've had several dreams of falling, that could be past life stuff breaking through into your reality. And how do I know that? I know that because if you've never fallen out of a tree, or if you've never fallen out of anything from a great height and hurt yourself, and you just have this irrational fear, then there's 9 times out of 10, there's a reason for it. And the reason may not necessarily be in this incarnation. You guys get me? For those of you who are therapists who are trying to track whether someone's phobia is happening in this incarnation or another incarnation, do timeline therapy. For those of you who don't know how to do that, I could teach you really quickly. Draw an arrow diagram on a piece of paper with arrowheads on either side. Above the line, put everything positive that has impacted that person's life. And below the line, put everything negative that has impacted that person's life, including being attacked by a dog, falling out of a tree, being hospitalized, and stuff like that. And then match what is happening in the person's present reality at whatever age that they are at right now with what you see on the timeline. because timeline therapy is useful because you could see the trends in the individual's life, the ups and downs. You guys get that? Very
Yeah.
useful tool, and it
Incredible.
doesn't miss anything. Okay,
And we
so
we
that
got a message, David. We got a message from Andrew saying we should make a centipede horror movie for spiritual people. Asked me to put
you
it in
want
the
to
comment
listen.
thread.
You know, Andrew's watching this broadcast. Let me explain something to you.
Killer grasshoppers.
When we were at Bide Mill, one of the worst ideas, and I'm going to Barbados in a few days. Can you imagine centipedes sprouting wings and flying? Can you imagine the horror? That's like the worst kind of horror. Imagine centipedes have wings and they're landing on you from ever. Like you have like a mass, like a swarm of centipedes coming at you. Can you imagine the horror? Oh God.
Yes, I can.
Oh God, oh God.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you remember Bide Mill when they sprayed Bide Mill, Andrew?
Yeah, I had to have them come and spray it because the centipedes were so bad that it was risking life and limb.
And he's not kidding, because
What
there
I'm
were
what
dead
I'm saying
bodies
what I'm
everywhere.
saying they were this big, 10 to 12 inches long. Those were the small ones. They would kill rats. Could or literally, they would kill rats.
Yeah.
Did it? So you got bitten by one, Andrew?
Yeah, a smaller one, and my leg swelled up really bad twice.
How bad was the pain?
Very bad. Very, 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 very bad. Incredibly painful.
Yeah, it's next level pain. Have you been bitten by a centipede? Anybody? That's in Barbados. As fuck. Has anybody else been bitten by a centipede? Matter you?
I'm not
They're
really
so-
familiar with them.
tiny.
I'm gonna have to watch some videos when I finish
They're
this.
very
But I know
tiny.
they're fucking pretty
Yeah, we
scary
have
looking
little
things.
ones here.
Yeah, they're scary, and they're scary for a reason, because it's like your mind. And by the way, if you see a live centipede, that is a big one. Your mind, there's a primal fear that happens inside of you that says, I just want to stay away from you. Just stay away from me.
And the centipede says, come here, don't go away.
Hey, Andrew, you know that these centipedes in Barbados, what they do is they actually get into your bed sheets and stuff.
Yep.
And
And
people
your
wake
shoes.
up in pain. They wake
Yep.
up in
Mhm.
pain.
Now the irony is, once they sprayed the property, and we would go and sweep them out every day, and the whole property was surrounded by sugar cane fields, so it's like 10 trillion centipedes per square acre, and they'd come out of the property and be dead within, I don't know, 12 hours of coming onto the property because of the spray that we used. But it actually made the property usable. Other than that, the property would have been completely unusable without the spray.
Just so that we're clear, the name of the spray he's talking about, and you could go Google this, it's Demon. Daemon. That's the name of the spray.
And what's
Yeah,
your
t-
experience like after this, then, Andrew, with centipedes? After you've got bitten, is there a?
Oh, I have a healthy
Well,
respect for the bitches.
yes,
As well as
there we
somebody
go,
who-
flipping the
What?
frequency.
Listen, you think one good shoe step, poof, your full weight kills him? Nope. I'm not a light guy, and I went pow. That didn't kill it. It just pissed it off. Okay.
And
Yeah.
a lot of
Formidable.
people make the mistake of chopping them in half, and the two pieces just walk away, which is
Yeah.
not good. Which is not good for your mind. It's not good for your mind to see it, right? The
Yeah.
two pieces just walk away. I'm like, I just cut you in half. Right?
So the common thing there is to try to cut off their heads, but that is really difficult because it's an armor-plated head. Okay, and you can't just put a knife up to them because they'll attack you. They go, okay. So you think a slipper, like one little slipper tap kills any bug anywhere else in the world? Not them. No, just piss them off.
So I'm in St. Lucia right now, and I'm in the Heights because I'm not going down on the flat because nothing is getting in here at all. Okay? No grasshoppers, no anything. They're not
No
coming up to this
grasshoppers.
level. They're not getting up to this height. But I'm going to Barbados next, where there are centipedes. And Andrew knows how much I hate these things. I hate all creepy crawlies. Once again, we're talking about the psychology of spirituality. There are embedded fears that I think that, like, I don't think anybody on earth would look at a centipede and think and be okay with it. Does that make any sense?
That's not true, David. There are centipedes are your best pet to have at home. YouTube videos all over.
Yeah.
Dead
What?
serious.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm actually an insect person as well, David. I actually really, I find them actually beautiful. I love insects, yeah.
What?
No, seriously. How to
Listen,
tame
okay,
centipedes.
all right. Let's have a
On
talk
your arm
about.
and everything. They pet it.
It's
I
the
have a
mantis, isn't it? I think I don't think the mantis is that scary looking. I think it's a beautiful thing, but I can imagine centipedes. If I saw one, I'd probably run.
No, you do see them, like Andrew was saying, you see them, people with the huge ones on their arms, and they'll just sit there quite benevolently, and they stroke them and put them back in the cage, and yeah.
I could never do that.
That's difficult. I can do the tarantulas and
Give it
things
a little
like
kiss when you put it back in the cage.
that.
Goodbye,
Now
darling.
we're talking about relationships. Imagine that you meet this woman in a bar or a man in a bar, and they're like your soulmate and so on. You go home, and there's like an 18-inch centipede in a little cage, and I'm like, oh, we're probably going to get married and move in and live together sometime. Centipede's gotta die.
Yeah, it's me or the centipede. Me or
The
the centipede.
centipede's gonna die. All right, one way or another, because I'm never going to be calling that centipede Harry or Larry or whatever the hell you're going to call it. That's not going to happen, right? Right? This is not going to happen. I have seen some things in this world, and I'm like, wow, no, tarantulas.
I bet there's some screaming in your childhood, David, with insects.
Not screaming so much as evacuating the premises. Like, you can have the house. I don't need it. It's fine. Have my room. Have the house. It's fine. I'm good. I'll just go somewhere else.
Yes.
We started this show talking about the Amityville horror. Remember that?
Yes.
So
That's
you
why
move
we
into
should
a
make the
house.
centipede horror movie.
You move into a house, and the house tells you, kill your family. Leave the house. Leave the house.
Did you ever see the Saturday Night Live remake of a black family inside the Amityville horror house?
No.
No.
I didn't.
It's worthwhile. It's from the late '80s or early '90s. It was what's his name? The guy from Saturday Night Live that played Gumby. What's his face?
Oh.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy. You know, they say what happens with a black family or an Asian family, because they do it when the demon says, "Get out of my house." The black family runs. The Asian family says, "No, I paid too much for it. You go now."
We were just talking about the psychology of things, like in these horror movies. A little box is telling you, "Open me." Don't open the effing box. Why? like curiosity is so ingrained in people, right? That they're like, "Oh, I wonder what happens."
Yeah. Don't separate halfway through the horror movie. You're gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
I remember one time I got a slice of pizza, and I walked down. I was playing cricket down at this field with my mate who I used to live near, and I was about to eat the slice of pizza, and one of those huge daddy long legs, it was like a huge spider, massive, crawled into my mouth as I was about to eat it, and it started crawling up the pizza into my mouth, and I couldn't eat pizza for a long time after, and kitchen roll triggered me to reminding me of the spider for ages. Or whatever the fuck it was. It was like a huge daddy long legs. And in England there's something called the horsefly, and that scared the shit out of me, because they're fucking huge and they go and land on horses and suck the blood, and they're not small little things, they're fucking massive. Have you seen any of those guys, those horseflies?
Yeah, they're like a
Nuts.
mustard yellow, right? Like a
Nasty
mustard
bite.
yellow, and the bites
Yeah.
are always
They
massive,
are.
really.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah,
Ooh,
horrible
they're
things.
terrifying.
So we swapped David for Andrew.
How's things, Andrew? How you doing, man?
Doing good. I just finished in between sessions, and I saw you guys chit chatting. I figured I'd hop in and see where you guys are at.
Yeah, why not?
Brilliant. So have you read that? Santo says come down to Australia. We sleep with creepy crawlies.
Yeah, one of their most
rest-
common house spiders is about this big, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about those videos? I think I sent you one in the group, you know, of the anacondas, how big they are. Oh, they're terrifying. Those anacondas, what? Woof. Imagine being stuck in a room with one of those things. You're like, what the fuck do I do now?
It's the boa constrictors that would be the more scary, you know, the ones that squeeze when they get really huge and have that big square head, don't they, you know? Dangerous.
Nature's very interesting. Have any of you seen a bald eagle up close?
Yes.
Did you see the look on its face? That look that says, I'm just here to kill things. That's what I'm about. That look, that screw face, according to the Jamaicans, that says,
The screw face.
right? Right? That nature's very interesting, or the eyes of a shark as an example, right? Nature patterns things based on how they are. And I think it's the same for people, I think. What do you think?
It is. Did you ever see the video of the bald eagle diving into the water to catch something? And it was an octopus using a piece of fish as a detractant to capture the bald eagle?
What?
Yeah, look for bald eagle versus octopus. A guy rescues the bald eagle, and the eagle's like, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you for getting out there. I was about to die." Yeah, octopus.
It was going to be drowned.
Yeah, it was going to be drowned and eaten. Yeah, but that's the octopus. It'll hold on to a fish and make it seem like the eagle can come in and get the fish and then get it.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's a brave
That's
octopus.
Smart tactics.
Predator
that.
versus
Clever
predator.
octopus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the look on the eagle's face was like, "Thank God you rescued me. Oh, Lord Jesus Christ, thank God you rescued me." The look on his face.
There's so when I was younger, my dad had a Harris hawk in the garden, and it was called Fallon. And we went to an event last year with the kids, and it said they had a Harris hawk on show. So I went up to it, and I could see it, but it was next to a golden eagle, and it gave me a realization of how fucking big golden eagles are.
Yeah.
So the Harris hawk to me as a kid was huge, but I saw it next to the golden eagle. It looked like a little crow. And the golden eagle was like 5-6 times bigger and wider, and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
The talons of one of those eagles, they're impressive, aren't they? It's just, it's something else.
Very tasty, too.
What?
what? Go on, fill it. How does it taste? What texture, Andrew?
Like chicken feet. I'm kidding.
Like what?
I'm
Oh,
kidding.
silly son.
Come on, I'm kidding.
Oh, I never know with you, Andrew.
No, I don't know.
Spiritual food.
You'll
out
try
there.
anything once, Andrew, so you never know.
That is the best thing all spiritual people is eagle foot soup.
Eagle foot soup.
I'm thinking of all the American Indians that I know that are listening to this broadcast. Like, what? What did he just say?
They're all like, yeah,
Let's call the police.
they're all like tasty soup.
Yeah. So, where I live in Canada, I met people who have eaten porcupine, and that was intensely traumatic to hear for me. And I'm vegan, and I don't really care about what people eat, but porcupines, how? What do you get? They make porcupine stew out of it.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that too much trouble? That should be too much trouble, right?
Explain the hatred for prairie dogs.
So I didn't know what a prairie dog was. I believe in the US, y'all call it gophers. I don't know what you call it in the UK. And
They don't have them there. Prairie
we
dogs
don't
are
have
actually
anything like that.
just an aggressive breed of gopher. Yeah.
it's a really cute little rat thing. Okay? That cute little rat thing will burrow into the ground and leave little holes for your pets your livestock to walk through and break their legs. And that would be you as well. Don't run through the fields, okay? Okay? Because you're going to break your leg. And these things are really, really cute. And they're like, they look like really cute little animals. But the people around where I live buy guns just for these things, to kill them. And I remember the first time that I heard this, and my heart went out. And like, why would you want to kill these little things? And then they showed me exactly what they're capable of. Okay, I didn't know what a beaver was capable of until I saw what it can do. One little beaver will destroy an entire piece of land.
Yep.
Okay, one little beaver will destroy an entire piece of land by gnawing trees and making dams and redirecting the entire flow of a river into your land so that you can't plant anything. So, yeah, nature is mighty, very much so. I did see a bison up close for the first time in my life, and a moose. It's not like Rocky and Bullwinkle, okay?
No.
They're huge.
They are massive, yeah.
So, David, as an islander in your ice and snow, what was the hardest thing to get used to, the animals or the winter?
I think when people think about winter and I'm 200 miles below the Arctic line, they think of winter in a way, well, my fridge is cold. No, it's colder than your fridge. Okay, it's colder than your freezer, right? It's the kind of thing that you preserve meat in, except you're the meat. So it wasn't that bad. The animals, I had a lot of trouble getting a handle on, because the scale of animals from an islander to somebody who lives in Canada is completely different, right? We have stuff in Canada that is near prehistoric stuff. If you've ever seen a bison, you're thinking that thing hasn't finished evolved yet, okay? And there was a bison stampede across the highway. Andrew, did I tell you about that? Some bison got loose across the highway. You don't ever want to, look, these things would make your car look small, okay? People buy specific vehicles to hit those animals in a way that they don't die, as in the people don't die. Because if you're in a car crash with some of these animals, you're going to die. Okay? So it's a lot of prehistoric stuff. So I think it would be the animals, Andrew, because I've seen some things that are different. I think the thing that I had to get used to more than anything else is the way nature operates. The little sun dogs and bubbles around the sun, Aurea borealis, seeing night and day collide. These are the kinds of things that are impressive. But you guys are doing tours now, ice. For those of you who watch this broadcast, please go to the Scotland tour. Please sign up for that. Because I have been to Scotland, and goddamn, I have been. I went to school there, actually. That is some place to visit. There's a lot of history there. The whole of England is racked with history.
It is.
I remember you telling me about your first witnessing of the sundog. You're like, I can't believe what my eyes are showing me.
Yeah, a bubble around the sun. A bubble around the sun, because, light is not hitting the ground. Too many ice crystals. Actually, I'm finishing my camera roll, all the storage on my phone, taking pictures, because nobody's going to believe that stuff. Pink lightning. Let's not forget the pink lightning.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there is such a thing as pink lightning. It hits the ground, and people do get struck by lightning out where I live.
So, David, you're getting to the point where you're transitioning from winter to spring. You'll see ball lightning now too. Yeah,
there is that. The last thing that happened when I was leaving, which was very odd, it's kind of like little flakes of frost that was in the air, except you inhaling them. Not a good look. Listen, not good at all, right? So it makes you feel, it doesn't matter what you have on, it gets into you. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
You have pretty much the same kind of weather. That snowstorm that hit us, did it hit you, Andrew?
Yes, and it was that bad. Well, see, we have lake effect where I'm at, so we can get snowflakes the size of your palm,
Yeah.
giant, and that freezing thing. Oh yeah, I've seen that many times. And then when it gets stuck inside your nose, yeah, it's awful. Because then
I think
icicles
it's
build up inside your nose.
for those of you watching this broadcast, I highly recommend that you guys travel. I think Andrew has a very good deal there. If you want to travel with like-minded people. Once again, sign up for the tours that we'll be doing, right? Sign up for the tours that these guys will be doing because it's like-minded people and you get to enjoy nature. And what could
And
be
not be
better
run
than
over
travel?
by a bison.
Yeah. What could be nature? What could be better than experiencing nature with shamans? Pretty much. New appreciation.
Mhm.
What's your
Incredible,
tour stuff?
guys. And also, as well, the one thing I wanted to add was have you ever had the green flash? You know, so when you go into the ocean,
Oh, yeah.
and when the sun's about to set on the ocean, it kind of produces this green flash.
Yep.
I was on holiday in Mediterranean about 12 years ago, and I saw it. I've only seen it once. And it was incredible. It just sent a bolt of light down the ocean. It was really cool.
Yeah. In Barbados, as an example, if you're on the sea or on the ocean, you can actually count down the sunset. You can,
Yep.
but then we're closer to the equator, right? So you could imagine I am in St. Lucia right now, and I went from -15 to plus whatever this is, and my body is not having the best time. It's not. It really isn't. It feels like microwave business, okay? It feels like flash heating, right? It feels like flash heating, and yeah. And then I'm going to go to Barbados, which is even hotter than here, right? So
So out of the
it
fire
will
and
be,
into the frying pan.
yeah. And then back to the minus whatever that is. Yeah,
And then deep
so
froze.
yes.
Well, spring will be coming around soon. Don't worry.
Spring is still minus temperatures. You know that, right? We're talking about -10 from what I could
Yeah,
see from.
at least you're not like the California's Lake Tahoe, where they got 178 inches of snow in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, there's that. What do you guys see for this year in terms of the climate and the way things are going to change in the world?
I see a lot of property damage from climate change.
Yeah, yeah,
The last time they registered that much snow was like the winter of 1880.
hmm
So more and more extremes of weather.
No, winter's not even over for them yet.
Mm.
They still got winter in those mountains doesn't end till 1st of July. It'll snow all the way up to the 1st of July.
Hey, Laura, what is the temperature like in England?
So now it's about freezing tonight, isn't it, guys? For,
We've got snow on the way in a few
you've
days
got
again.
yeah,
They
we're
always say that
supposed to
though,
have.
and sometimes it doesn't come.
But if it gets to like -10, I'm so uncomfortable. Even just freezing temperatures, I'm just uncomfortable. I don't enjoy it at all. I get
Yeah,
really
same here.
sensitive to the cold.
You ain't
Yeah.
seen cold yet.
No, I know I haven't. I know it frightens me just listening to these stories.
Yeah, it's been about
I,
three.
I, I
three
can't
to
stand the
6 in
cold.
day.
Maddie, do you know what a snowsuit is?
I don't think I've seen one, but I have a good mind of what it might be.
Okay. Imagine something that's like a one piece or a two piece, and it's like 2.5 inches thick of extreme heavy protection, and that barely keeps you warm.
Oh man, that just sounds terrible to me. That sounds awful.
Uh-huh. It's
I have
necessary
to
though.
sleep I have to sleep fully dressed in the winter here. You know, I just can't take it. Sometimes you wear a hat.
In the winter. Okay, so -10, is that Fahrenheit or is that Celsius?
Celsius.
Okay, so um, I think what was the record? We hit -40 this time.
That's horrible.
We hit -40. I do remember people who had made the mistake of opening their windows couldn't close them anymore.
Oh no. The UK would come to a complete standstill in that kind of temperature. The whole of the UK would just grind to a halt.
They couldn't close them anymore because the windows froze, right? The windows froze up completely.
There's literally so as soon as it freezes, it goes into like what -5 in England. All the schools close, everything closed down. The pipes like freeze. It's like
why?
Don't run.
So y'all have metal pipes running into your houses?
No, they're plastic. They're plastic.
Plastic,
Well,
but
the
in
old
schools,
ones are
a lot of the pipes kind of just freeze over. It's like a standard thing in primary schools and secondary schools.
And when it snows as well, yeah, when it snows, people, because of all the small roads that feed into bigger roads, and it's very densely populated. So when it snows heavily, people just can't get to work, or they can't get to, because the roads people come to a halt on the big roads, and so people can't get to work. They can't drop the kids off at school. So eventually they just say, right, let's just shut the schools. It happens quite often when it snows.
I wish the Canadians would probably take a little bit of a lesson off of England, because it could be a whiteout, and I see these little kids being ushered off to school in a whiteout, and I'm like, that's not right. That has got to be some kind of challenge. That's just not right. And I see
anybody in North America, Canada that has regular winters knows that. I remember, like, normally, like, if they're going to call school off, they would call it off at like 6 a.m. before parents had to go to school. And if you didn't get a warning by 6:15, 6:30, because the bus would come 10 after 7 or 10 to 7, you know it's not going to come. Sometimes the bus would be late. And you're out there in your snowsuit with your book bag, huddling up with 5 other kids in -20-degree weather and freezing. We want to go back in, but we know our parents would yell at us, the bus is coming. You got to wait out there till it comes. And so many times we're buses 45, 50 minutes late. Okay? And nowadays, if they get a blink of snow, the kids get a day off.
For real?
Yeah, all the time. When it starts to snow here and there's like a few inches, that's it. All the schools are off. Everything's off.
For real? Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I remember moving to Canada, and I was in touch with Andrew, and one of my things that I used to do, which is not a very spiritual or considerate or very nice thing to do, is order Uber Eats, because I ain't stepping outside there. Okay?
This is so funny.
So this you'd open the door, and there'd be this little frozen Indian man with his head shaking. This is your food, sir. And you have to tip that man. You have to tip that man. Your conscience will not let you not tip that man. That man has gone through some stuff.
Right. He moved from Goa, India, in the hottest weather of all, and is driving in the dead of winter in Canada delivering food and loving it because he's not in India.
Yeah, and you look, your man, you gotta tip that man. You absolutely do, right? But I got used to it, so I think it might have been the animals. It's not so much the climate. I think the biggest thing in terms of changes for me is nature just operates differently. It's very, very different. People think that they understand nature, but nature up there is very much in your face. You can't escape it, right? You can't say, oh, I'm building a city and then I'll be out of nature. No, there's no such thing. Because when winter comes, nature will reclaim that entire land. Okay? Nature will reclaim, there's no fighting against nature anyway. You know, like in New York or Toronto, you build skyscrapers and so on. Nobody's risking building any skyscrapers in the Western Canada. That will get blown down, for sure. Because you need a group of skyscrapers for that to work, and any amount of engineering will go sideways if you can't even keep your roads in condition, because the ground gets so frozen, the roads crack. And you're probably wondering, at what temperature does tar freeze? I don't know, but it gets frozen. Tar freezes and it cracks. So I had to learn. Go ahead.
David,
I worked at a
tell them about learning how to layer. I remember teaching you that and those special socks that I told you to get.
So when I moved, yeah, I want to hear this deal. I want to hear you. But when I moved to Canada, I was freezing, and the reason why I ordered Uber Eats is because I'm not stepping out there because I didn't know how to layer very well, right? And Andrew lives in Ohio, which is kind of like where I live. It's a little bit south, but it's kind of like where I live, and we spent quite a bit of time on Amazon ordering toe warmers because you could possibly lose a toe out there. You can, okay?
toe what?
People die.
Toe
Like if your feet are not covered, you're gonna get like frostbite. You're gonna get frostbite, and I was making several mistakes, right? Several mistakes. You don't mess around with that kind of weather. People go to bars, they come out of bars and they sit down in their car and they do not swing the engine, which allows the car to heat you up. And so they fall asleep because they're either drunk or whatever, and you die right there. Huh?
Right.
You've got to wear your long johns.
Correct. Yes, and I had a lot of pride about that. I didn't want to wear long johns because I come from the Caribbean. We don't wear long johns. Hello, right? So I was like proud. I'm not wearing those stupid long johns. Well, let me tell you, I'm wearing them now. Wearing them now.
Yeah.
I think the most coolest thing is the reaction you got to those special socks.
Yeah, they're special little insulated socks where they have little grips underneath them. Did you know that, Andrew?
Yeah, I did. That's why I told you to get them.
Right, they have little grips of it so you don't fall and shit. It was a very, very good learning experience for me. But I think I have gone over the edge now where I am accustomed to that climate.
I had a pair of long johns, and I've still got them upstairs from when I worked in Finland in 2010. I worked at a place called Karesuando on the border of Finland and Sweden near the Arctic Circle, and I used to go to work at like 6 a.m. and it used to be minus 32, minus 30, and I've had these pair of long johns, and they're like indestructible long johns. They didn't cost much, but I fucking love them. Like, I'll always put them back on, and they've been with me for about, how many years now? Over 10 years. But the funny story I was going to say was, so when I worked at this Santa safari place, there was a guy who was Santa, and he looked so much like Santa, and we used to go into the sauna every night, and he used to be there with his hat on, but bollock naked. And it was the funniest thing ever. You used to see him, like playing the Santa role at night time. You used to go to sauna, he had his hat on, and he was just there naked. And it was ace because we used to go in the sauna, get so hot, and when you run out into the snow and you just go face naked straight into it, it's a wonderful experience. I highly recommend it.
You worked in Finland?
Yeah, I worked in Finland at Karesuando, it was called. It was at a Santa Safari Lodge. So it was like a huge restaurant, they brought people over from England, and they did like sleigh riding with huskies and stuff.
Yeah.
Really cool experience, because at night we had like hot dogs and burgers under the northern lights. So pretty much every night you saw the Aurora Borealis above us. It was really, really cool.
I highly recommend anybody who hasn't seen the Aurora Borealis. You want to see nature in all its splendor. That is something to behold. Very much so.
That's right.
Or maybe
that
in
is something.
Scotland.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest meditating energy you can do is witnessing the Aurora Borealis. So, David, how does cold weather affect spiritual people?
I'm gonna expand that question. How does cold weather affect spiritual people? It gives you a natural hibernation state. So your body is put into that state. So you actually become more contemplative when it's cold. And I'm guessing we're not much different from the bears in that regard. But I'm going to expand that because as the seasons change, your body is changing. A lot of people live in places. I lived in Toronto, so I could give you some background. A lot of you shamans who watch this will have some sort of affinity to nature. I lived in Toronto. I was spiritually dead for many, many, many years. Okay? I moved to Western Canada where there is no escaping nature at all. Nowhere. There's nowhere you could go that you could escape nature. Okay? Your body starts to co-regulate with everything that's around you. Does that make any sense to you guys?
Oh yeah.
Because I always thought that the co-regulation with nature had some. You had to be very ornate with putting your feet onto the ground and so on. No, nature will come and find you in your apartment. They will come and find. Nature will come knock on your door. Oh hi, I'm still out here. And you find that when the seasons change, your mood and everything in your body changes. So I've found that just living in a place where there's an overwhelming natural experience, my body is changing as the seasons change, right? Like it's a knowing. The people who live there, they just know. The farmers who live there, they absolutely know. So,
hey guys, I got to run. I got to get to my next session. But it's great talking with y'all. We'll talk all soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sure. All right, take care. Take care, Andrew.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
All right, guys. Do you have any other questions for me? I am willing to.
So before we go, David, so I'll put the graphics up. 1 second. So we have this. If you want to talk about
Your course.
the course.
Okay, so guys, there are two things that are going to happen. First of all, I want to thank Laura, Maddie, and Dave for having me on their show. There are two things that are going to happen. We're going to be having this course, which is the Basic to Advanced Counseling Skills course. You should consider it if you are already a therapist, or if you just want to learn a little bit more about the human psyche. It will absolutely help you when it is that you have those difficult clients, difficult to understand. It gives you a baseline for helping clients. And it's something that you absolutely should learn if you are, well, basically a human being interacting with other human beings. The psyche is a very important thing. So this course is accredited by the International Association of Counselors and Therapists, the International Medical and Dental Hypnotherapy Association, the Professional Board of Hypnotherapy. We are going to be teaching you tools such as cognitive behavioral therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy, hypnotherapy, NLP, and a whole host of different tools which you can implement when you are utilizing or techniques with your clients. It's good to have the piece of paper as well, because apparently people respond to the guy in the white lab coat or the authority figure. So I'm just going to suggest that you guys consider this. We also have the option of doing just the live classes. So if you don't want a piece of paper, but you want to know stuff, you can absolutely sign on to our live classes as well. But there's something else that I want to say to you guys. We're probably going to have a screening of the Celestine Prophecy at some point in time in the future. Actually, on Friday, we're thinking about doing that. So if you guys want to come and hang out and watch the Celestine Prophecy, I think Andrew does something on Friday, so we're going to either have it before or after. And I will let you guys know when that's happening. So come out and have a talk about the insights. I've actually decided to rehash all the spiritual movies that have gone on. So we'll let you guys know when that is going on. And since everybody on this panel has watched just about everything that I have, I'll have to find new things. But guys, you have a bunch of things going on. I want to hear about it. And I would like you guys to send me what's going on. We know the Scotland tour is happening. I heard that Laura and Matty are putting on a workshop for Two Feathers Medicine. Or y'all have workshops going on? Let me know. And yeah.
Yep, we will do. Thanks, David.
And thank you for coming on, David. It was real fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
thanks
guys so much.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matty. Thank you, Laura.
Yep. It's been good fun.
Yeah, it has. Thanks, guys.
And thanks
All
for
right.
everyone watching. We'll see you again next time.